Hallo liebe Freunde und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Episode der Personal Trainer Allianz. Mein Name ist Pascal Bauer und ich freue mich, heute unseren ersten internationalen Gast begrüßen zu dürfen. Wir haben keinen weniger hier als wie den Mladen Jovanovic. Dieser Podcast oder diese Episode ist aus mehreren Gründen eine Premiere. Zunächst mal eben haben wir, wie gesagt, den ersten internationalen Gast hier. Wir werden auf Englisch sprechen, ich werde gleich wechseln und dann widmen wir uns auch wirklich dezidiert einem Trainingsthema. Bisher war ja der Fokus viel auf Business-Themen, Kundenbetreuung, aber heute wollen wir wirklich in ein Trainingsthema gehen. Without further ado, Mladen, thank you very much for hopping in.
Thanks for the invitation, Pascal.
Mladen, I mean, a lot of people listening now maybe know you, especially if they're like in a sports scientific field. But could you take a few minutes to introduce yourself, where you're from, what are you doing, and maybe what is Agile periodization?
Oh yeah, so just try to keep them short. So I'm currently in Belgrade, but I grew up in Croatia, in Pula, on a seaside. Currently in Belgrade, currently on the mountain Tara, riding motorcycles here in the mountains with a friend of mine, and also working. So yeah, I graduated at the Faculty of Sports, started working in football. Or soccer, depends who's listening, and then also basketball. Ended up over a weird sequence of events to Fenerbahce volleyball. After that, I went to around 2010. I went with the Mike Boyle internship in Boston. Afterwards, I was head SNC in Hammarby football with Greg Berhalter, who was I don't know if he's still, but he was a national team selector, national team coach for the USA national team with the football. And then went to Qatar to Aspire Academy as a physiologist. And then I got the offer from Port Adelaide Football Club, the Aussie Rules Football in Adelaide, Australia. So I was there as a data scientist and strength coach, which was a kind of dual role, but it didn't play out really well as we thought it will. So I was back to Belgrade. Recently, actually last year, I made a doctorate. So we call it a PhD now, a PhD. Initially, the topic was the velocity-based training, which during my time at the Hammarby, we wrote a paper that got pretty decent citations on VBT, and got me positioned as one of the kind of, in quotation marks, expert in VBT. But I switched the topic to sprint profiling and actually acceleration velocity profiling in a short sprints, and dealt with the bias happening with the timing gates. So that was the topic with the doctorate. So I'm currently now involved with few UFC fighters. Originally my sports is the combat sport. So luckily now I have an opportunity to finally work with the fighters. So I'm kind of slowly switching to MMA and other combat sports. So that's a short compressed history.
Awesome. So nearly 2 decades in the field of athletic training, especially. I think this is like your area. I mean, I prepared a small introduction. I wrote here that you hold a PhD, of course. Congrats for that. You're a strength and conditioning coach with a special focus on data analysis, sports science, and also philosophy, which we will touch maybe today a little bit. And you authored the book Strength Training Manual, the Agile Periodization Approach. And there you emphasize like planning under uncertainty, iterative cycles, releases, phases, sprints, and some kind of combining top-down vision and bottom-up adaptability models, which I really like and which should be somehow the topic today. Actually, that was how I found out about you, like maybe 10 years ago, I guess. Now we have a common friend and know each other. but I found about you when I was researching about training planning, for personal training for the practical field, and this idea of agile periodization. Your strength card builder is very famous, I guess. And yeah, I invited you today for this podcast, this episode for the Personal Training Alliance, we call it, to speak about training planning. Yeah. So could you maybe just sum up a little bit the strength training manual, this agile periodization approach, and how it could be maybe applied? Or why did you even create it? What was the idea behind it? It's very interesting, I guess.
So yeah, I mean, we all figure, all of us as strength conditioning coaches are reading the same stuff. The curriculum on the faculty is quite similar. You read about Matveyev, Bompa, Isurin, Verkhoshansky, and so forth. And trying to apply some of these models in real life, you figure out it's not that easy, particularly in a team sports like soccer. You get different type of players. You have different type of let's call it frequent competition sports in quotation mark are different than peaking sports like a seasonal competition. So that's one of the first differences. Then the buy-in from the athletes, uncertainty of issues or injuries. For example, working with the MMA fighters or combat athletes on some of the sessions, you might injure, or not injure, but maybe do something to your fingers or thumbs, and you're unable to hold a barbell or dumbbell, so it's going to affect the workouts, the exercise selection, and so forth. So things are very hectic in a real life, and that long-term plan was always tricky to actually not develop but deploy, if that makes sense, in a real life. So around 2014, 15, while I was in Qatar, since my background is also programming, I started reading stuff about project management and actually managing the IT or software projects. Usually they use something that's called a waterfall. So you have specific phases and you follow up. And even in the software industry, that kind of failed due to changing in the scope of the project, discovering new things that you need to develop, changing technology, changing the market. So they figure out it doesn't work. So they come up with something called the Agile framework or Agile, or one of the framework is called Scrum. So I don't know how I stumbled on a book called the Scrum, and I was reading it and I was like, fuck, this is very related to our problems. So I started digging more into Lean and Agile and Scrum and other methodologies. And I saw huge parallels. So from 2014, 15, I started kind of merging or taking stuff from the software project management to sport management, so sport project management, if that makes sense. So eventually I came up with the Agile periodization, which is nothing more than application of these project management principles to our domain of how do you plan a season, how do you plan a workouts, and so forth. And I also kind of combine it with my personality or personal style, and love to make a philosophy and so forth, because I think every thinking person on this earth is also a philosopher, because everyone having a brain starts to ask questions about meaning and things like that, or how to improve the processes, how to improve the products, how to be a better coach and so forth. So I kind of combine all of that into a book, and also that book is kind of written for myself, because I was struggling with some concepts and arguing about them. So I was kind of arguing with a avatar in my head about some of the stuff that are kind of promoted over the recent years, and I was fighting and writing, and eventually the book came out. So it's one of the friend of mine said, like, I really like the book because it's unpredictable. It's like you don't know where you're gonna end up, and that's how it's written. So it's most of the books now from fitness or strength conditioning I read like in a day. because you immediately know what's, where they're going and what they're gonna come up with. But this one is a little bit, is a bit dodgy, because I'm arguing, and even during the writing process, and that's why I like writing, is that I discover while I write. And so I come up, I start with something, and then I go into a certain side way, figure out there's nothing there, and then, come back to the main topic. And eventually I prune it, and, I start attacking even my own ideas in the book and figure out if they're gonna stick or not, or they're gonna withstand the attacks. So yeah, it was very, very interesting writing. I also have in plan writing more applicable and more straight to the point book for practitioners. So that's in the plan for last few years, and also need to finish the volume 3 of the book. So plenty to do over the next year or so.
Awesome. Awesome. But uncertainty, I think this will be like a headline today. We will speak about this a lot. And obviously your like quite unpredictable ideas had some were resonating in the practical field. People love it, people felt like finally somebody understood me. And I personally felt like this, as you said, like going to the classical route, the curriculum, learning about like all these classical authors and books about this classical training principle and training systems and training planning and periodization and so on. And just finding out in a practical field that this is not possible doing it like exactly like it's shown in theory. The practical field is different, and it's in team sports especially. You have a lot of people to manage, seasons whatsoever, but in personal training it's the same. We have people coming in and don't showing up for a session, or are going for vacation, or feeling like a little bit tired of the day. And you have a training plan as a good sports scientist, like I learned it, want to sell your service, your perfect service, the waterfall method. And then you just get the problems in the practical field. And your concept, this agile periodization concept, gives like a little bit a hold for some persons, an emotional hold. Okay, I'm not the only crazy one who cannot apply the principles in theory in the practical field. There is some kind of an explanation. And I think you made an awesome job with this, to combining this project management knowledge to training planning. And actually, I personally, in U Sports, we are one of the biggest service providers in personal training in the German-speaking world. I teach your approach a little bit adapted to our to our signature training program. Each new trainer, he has to understand your concept, or this agile concept of training planning. And I use a lot of your words and frameworks for this. And that's the reason I really invited you. And I hope that so many trainers, especially like trainers who are working on their own without like feedback partners, grab a hold a little bit of these thoughts which you have, and maybe also resolve some issues they feel in their service. So let's go a little bit more into the agile periodization idea. So you said now training or people are unpredictable, and it's very hard to apply classical systems of training planning there. Does this mean that training is completely free and you can do whatever you want, or how do you approach a training plan for maybe a personal training client?
I think that boils to that thing that you mentioned in the introduction, the bottom up versus top down. So bottom up is having like a long-term plan, having like some type of a direction, rather than being a directionless. And sometimes you figure out a new direction or a pivot while you are training, which is also a concept that needs to be mentioned or discussed. Also one on important stuff, because immediately when you have a new client, you think you know what you might need to be doing with that client. You have idea, you need to lose weight, you need to get a habit of working out, blah, blah, blah. But while you start working with someone, a new things pop up, and they are emergent stuff that you pick up actionable emergent stuff that you pick up while you're working with a client. And, that's going to affect your long-term plan, more or less. But you need to have something in place, like a blueprint, if that makes sense. having a standardized workouts and generic workouts and so forth, something to start with, and also have some type of a direction. And bottom up is just dealing with what you have at the moment. So I tend to make a parallel, like a top down is like a making a, if you buy a Lego for your kid, you have my kid call it a map or like an instruction how to build a dinosaur from Lego. That's a top down. You have a map, you follow it, and you end up with the dinosaur. And then on the flip side, some of the kids, like once they finish it, they have all these Legos in a box, right? So you take the box and you're like, okay, I have these components. I'm interested in making this. I'm going to start making something. So that's more like a bottom up. So bottom up is, dealing with what you have in the moment. So, and I think that's highly neglected aspect of planning, because everybody thinks you need to have like a big plans, like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 months long plans. And at the end of the day, as you mentioned, sometimes you come to the workout, the the Smith machine is broken, you cannot use it. The fighters you're working with had some issue with the neck or a twisted ankle. So you need to quickly adapt to the workouts. Again, bottom up perspective, and then making sure that you're following that thread. So one analogy to think about it is like a top down is like a kind of a road or a pipe, but you are able to be wiggle within that pipe. So it's not like a straight line. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And I think like how should we also I was thinking about it is like how should we approach planning more from a bottom up perspective? Like what should be the elements or the structures from that perspective rather than from a top down, like a long term. And I'm not so certain I have a particular solution, but I think I have some type of ideas where we can actually go, and we can chat about it.
Perfect. Okay, that explains a lot, and I hope that resonates with some of the listeners, because, as you said, there are some restraints, and the Smith machine is broken, the finger hurts, the neck hurts, the clients are tired, they don't show up for the session, they get sick, they go to vacations, like a lot of like disturbing factors for our overall training plan. And what you're saying, it's not like totally fixed, like in a curriculum on a university, like we have to plan like 6-month meso, micro cycles, no? Very hardcore. Each session, each rep has to be like fixed, but it also is not like a free road, or open field where you can do everything what you want, and you just adapt how the clients feel what you want, and you have like a basic plan, but you don't estimate is the wrong word. You
don't overplan, I would say.
Exactly. You don't overcomplicate it too much. And you have this spectrum, let's call it like this, yeah. Because I see in the practical field a lot of personal training trying to do like this classical approach, and then being like all the time in a hurry to adapt their training plans and spending hours like training planning. And then the client shows up to the gym and everything is fucked, it's not functioning, and they're all the time in a hurry and struggle. And then the other side.
Sorry to interrupt you. I think you need to have some type of a direction. But here's another concept that I think it's quite important. I start looking at things from more phenomenological perspective, like lived experience, although that's kind of in a bad connotation nowadays from postmodernists. But you see some phenomena that you cannot read about in the books. And from a training, you always kind of adapt. You have two processes. You need to adapt the athlete, in quotation mark, adapt athlete to the program. So, okay, we are training 4 times a week. You need to be, try to come, don't drink the day before or things like that. You need to have certain energetic input, or, eat some certain type of food and so forth to gain the best results, right? So the athlete needs to be adapted to the program. But on the flip side, you also need to adapt program to the athlete. So it's always like this continuous fight between the two, like a complementarity. And then you might say, okay, if this athlete keeps, being late to the workouts, missing workouts, then you need to figure out, okay, this, we can address this from two perspectives. So either I just, take it as a modus operandi. This is his modus operandi or her, and let me figure out the different type of workout that's gonna be compatible with this type of person or context. And on the flip side, you might pull your client and say, if you really want the result, you need to stop fucking around. So it's always this kind of compromise, and sometimes you need to figure out. And also from this kind of bigger phenomenological perspective, I think there are two ways to approach training overall. So one is I call it push versus pull, or rise the floor versus pushing the ceiling. So rise the floor is making sure you have some type of progression overall. You adapt your training to adaptation of the athlete or a client. So you're not, you are seeing what's going to happen. You're not pushing anything. And push the ceiling is a workout where you're like, oh, we need to work hard 4 times a week. This is what you're doing. You need to make sure you're recovered for these sessions. So you're kind of pushing the ceiling up versus slowly rising the floor. So pushing the ceiling is like you're forcing the adaptation on the athlete. You're forcing the progressions. You're forcing exercise selection. So that's one of the extremes. And the other one is like rising the floor. So it's like, what you like being doing, let's see if you can increase the load this week, you didn't sleep well last night, we're going to adjust it. So it's different mentality of approaching planning. And when I started, I was always thinking about, every training is always like pushing the ceiling. And, you end up, injured or demotivated and things like that. So I think 80-90% is like rising the floor with the personal clients. And eventually you have these pre-summer, the push the ceiling workouts. So it's like beach body 3-week workout, but you cannot be on that type of workout for like 6 months or a year. So we need to juggle these two components continuously.
Awesome. That's so relevant for our field, for personal training. I'm 100% sure a lot of listeners from the field, from personal training, identify themselves with this problem. And none of the both is correct, because when you, just to elaborate a little bit on the field of personal training, when you push up the ceiling is, I guess, or when you adapt to the person, to the client, to the athlete, is it correct? This was pushing the ceiling, no?
Pushing the ceiling is like a pushing adaptation. You're forcing.
Okay.
You're forcing stuff.
Rising the floor.
Rising floor is like slowly building up and adapting. Mm-hmm. So adapting progression to the adaptation of the athlete, if that makes sense.
So just going into personal training and from the practical perspective, a lot of clients, of course, what I all the time tell my trainers, you have to adapt the training program to the client's needs and of course the wants. But if you just adapt to the wants, the client will be sitting on the couch eating potato chips and listening music or watching movies, which is obviously not giving him his needs. Yeah, he wants this, but it's not his needs. And you have to find, it's my way of explaining it, the balance between these two, which is maybe a similar concept, from the one side, physiological, the training side, and from the other side, from his client needs. Because in long term, the client, in a high performance sport, basically, I think it's maybe injury prevention, adaptation, and so on. In personal training, it's of course the client will stick to the program. Recreational athletes will not push all the time. They have to find a way to do it on a long run. And
exactly.
They have
and
to
they
like
also
somehow.
They also figure out. There's a great book called The Strangers to Ourselves. Highly recommend it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't know what we want. It's like you figure out as you go. And this is the whole concept behind the Agile aspect, is like iterative planning with a structure, but iterative planning is like plan as you go. And here you also figure out as you go. So it's like some of us, you probably have in your own history of working with the clients and people, they start going into the gym for certain wants, right? And you figure out the needs. And eventually they figure out, I'm not going to get Olympic body or like a Ronnie Coleman body. So eventually I enjoy actually working out, being with the people in the gym. For some people, I would say a large amount of people working out in the gym is like a type of psychotherapy. They start to need it. It becomes their part of identity. And again, motivations and things change as you go. The athletes change. They change as persons. They figure out, okay, I enjoy doing this as a process more than chasing the results. So I think that's maybe another better analogy for pushing the ceiling versus rising the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So pushing the ceiling is like chasing the results, forcing the results, forcing the adaptation, and rising the floor is like enjoying the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think people bounce between these two extremes. So, the summer is coming. You need to, straighten up. You need to straighten up your nutrition, sleeping. I'm going to work hard for like a month or something. And then I go for a vacation and you're on vacation, then you're like, okay, I'm loose. I have a hotel gym. Am I going to destroy myself in a hotel gym? Probably not. So I'm going to, the phenomenological of planning will be more looser. So today I feel like I'm going to do, easy workout in the gym, in the hotel gym. So, I feel I need to do some type of work. It doesn't necessarily need to be pushing the adaptation or chasing the results. I'm just enjoying it. So kind of different aspects and planning or training design in these two different environments will be different.
Mm-hmm. Direct question. Do you feel like that it's even more relevant? I just had the feeling now in personal training than it is in athletic training. Because as you spoke, this bouncing between the two extremes or sides, I felt like maybe in athletic training, you have a more clear end result, like a competition, execution of some movement or so on. And in personal training with recreational athletes, the overall goal is exactly this, like to do a long-term vision to change the identity. Can you comment on this idea maybe?
I would say yes, but we also have this in say, I'm going to use a combat sports for an example. Usually, once you know the fight, the upcoming fight, which can be like once to 3 times a year, depends on the combat sport. You have a training camp. It's 6 to 8 weeks long, maybe sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, depends on a announcement of the fight. And that's when you kind of straighten out. That's when you're kind of chasing the adaptation, but you need to be cautious of, not overloading the athlete. So it's not necessarily only on the load side. It's more like a straightening up in the head, I have a fight. And I think that can also be kind of compressed when it comes to sports like football. So, for example, you have match to match, and these cycles also happen inside that period. So, a day or 2 days before our next match, you kind of straighten it up. You are preparing for that specific opponent and so forth. With the personal clients, I would say this can happen like, oh, I have a summer vacation, I need to show my body, then you straighten up. Or you can have it more like a micro dosed by having a regular reviews or regular checks, like a body check and so forth. So they need to straighten up. But overall, I think you are correct, particularly for a recreational athlete. I don't think there's necessarily any point in which they need to actually force the adaptation. Maybe on certain periods they might enjoy certain type of a switch in a training plan, or maybe they have this subtype of a specific event like a wedding or vacation or something like that for which they want to prepare. So in leading to that is like the pipe that we mentioned is going to be more narrower rather than being like a very wider, like a very loose. The prescription will be more on point will be the demand, the expectations from the client will be on point. They need to be, if you plan a hard workout today, you need to make sure that you're able to actually do a hard workout today, if that makes sense, rather than being very, you don't feel like it, you're not going to do it. No, in this case, like, we plan a hard workout, you show up, not ready, we're still going to do it. But next time, make sure that you have like a 6-8 hours sleep, don't screw around before this type of a workout. So long story short, yeah, I think there is a difference, but it's not like huge difference. I think both aspects are involved in both, in professional sports and also in recreational sports.
Yeah, and as a practitioner, I can 100% confirm this. Like, as you said, people have changing goals during the year, summer vacation, wedding, I go for a hike and I'm not fit yet, something like that, and this can be used to make like a short cycle where you really focus on pushing. And it's the same, like you said, at competition in professional sports. Awesome. Okay, understand. I have to think a little bit.
Okay, one more. Yeah. Maybe a good thing with the Agile aspect is like you have these iterations, and after each iteration, you need to demonstrate what you have done, at least in the software industry. So these iterations are called the sprints. So it's like a fixed time frame, usually a week or 2 weeks, after which you need to actually demonstrate something to a product owner. So it needs to be like a working feature in the software and so forth. And the idea that the review and something that you need to demonstrate in a shorter time frame makes you on your toes, like makes you a little bit more, I need to show up what I have done. So speaking about the individual clients where everything is kind of loose until they have a specific event when they straighten up, maybe we can create this type of a mini reviews just to make sure that they are on point. And that tends to work really well for me also. It's like if you have a certain type of a test in a week or 2 weeks, it can be used like a check, like, are we doing the things correctly? And then we can pivot if needed, and then we can adjust the course. But also makes the clients more straighten up. It's like, I'm gonna be tested in 2 weeks. I better make it more serious, if that makes sense. So, and then I think it's always balancing this act of making too much stress about this testing or just using it as a quick check, just to make sure that they are on the same page.
I love this idea because just again, from the practical field of personal training, what we see a lot in the practical field is, as you say, a loose program, all the time adapting to the client's wants, so much so, and even changing, varying a lot, so much so that in often like over the course of a half year or a year of the client, training the client, the training program is like totally lost. There's nothing inside, there's no structure, no stability, nothing. And then a lot of trainers complain why they lose the clients, obviously because the clients didn't have no results. And he just thought to himself, okay, man, I can do this myself. I can just choose anyway. So, and you explained now very good the balance also between the stable part of the program and the varying aspect with these mini reviews. And actually, we do exactly this system in youth sports because we found out I leave the trainers really free training programs because I think they have to be agile or flexible on the client needs and wants, and they can decide on their own. Who am I to say you have to do this exercise with this client? You are already training him half a year, 3 times per week. But at the same time, I found out that training programs got really loose and really like not structured. So what we now implemented is like a little bit like mini reviews, also from an external person who comes and say, okay, look, let's see like certain exercises, not testing it on a testing day specifically, but how did he progress or she in this? And we have some kind of a hierarchy system, which means we have a head coach and a primary coach. and the head coach in like 6 month review, how long the program cycle is, goes to the client and also asks him, but also do mini reviews. Doing, is this approach? Is it like that? Would you say, okay, that's how it's thought to be?
So I just took some notes because I have these ideas recently. Also, is like in the software development, there's called something that one of the ideas of the software production writing code. It's called test-driven development. So before you write the code, you write a test for that code. So so you want to make sure, like, what are we actually expecting from the code, like a function or something, like how to deal with missing values, or how to deal with results, how to process the bugs. So you write the test first, and then you write the code. So why is this useful? Also, you have a test, and then the projects get more complicated. You run the test every once in a while. You figure out there's no errors. And then in a new development, maybe you change something in the functions and so forth, and then the test fails. And then you're like, oh, so just making sure that you have ongoing compatibility over a long run. So with your working with the athletes, you want to kind of work with the athletes, like create a development. So from this perspective, you need to say, okay, what are the actual tests that we need to have in place to make sure that we have ongoing development correctly. So if I want to make sure that, I want to make my athletes more explosive, what are the tests for, in quotation mark, explosiveness? So you might do a broad jump, we might do a single leg hops, we might do a counter movement jumps, or we might do a, say, if you have certain devices, so you might use this as a test. So I think that's one of the aspects, like a test-driven development, having tests in place.
To have some kind of
yeah, with the personal clients, I think that could be a body composition. So how do we know the changes are happening? Skin folds, circumferences, body weight eventually. So these are the tests that we need to figure out, just to make sure that we are on the right spot. So that's one part of the answer. The second part, I think, also from a business perspective, and maybe working in a team, see how the government works. We have government and opposition, right? You always need to have someone who's trying to figure out what are these guys doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have this complementarity between position and opposition. So maybe with some of the bigger organizations, you might have an internal inspection, in quotation mark, who needs to deal with, doing the reviews, doing trying to, again, English word.
Quality control, we can call it, like more nicely.
It needs to be independent. Yeah, independent inspection, if that makes sense.
Oh my God. There's so much.
So it's like an internal reviewer. Internal reviewer who's and some types of when you have like a coding team with a software development, you have a testing team. So their job is to find the flaws in the code. So there's no hard feelings. It's like we work together. You write the code and I test your code. So my job is to find the flaws in your code. Actually, that's my job. So with some of the organizations, maybe you should have like a department of trying to find the flaws. So it's like in police department, you have internal inspection who ideally the job is to find the flaws in working of the police department. So, some type of not following the procedures and so forth. Again, it needs to be independent. And as we see in politics, it's not independent. But
they're just passing the money to the next person.
Yeah.
Let me just interrupt you, because you have so much important things. For me personally, this with the internal reviewing system, because I strongly believe in personal training teams, not only because you're more flexible with appointments, you can like help yourself out, you can just help each other, but also because you have some kind of internal review system where you can like discuss, because a lot of personal trainers are on their own with their own problems, with their own clients, and never have an external feedback. And if you get together in a team like we do it, and I promote this strongly, this personal alliance vision, that you person trainers have to come together. I mean, the name implements it. Also because the training quality will be better because we have an internal reviewing system, no hard feelings. And yeah, maybe another friend who also gives you the feedback, man, I think these exercises are not too good or it's not stable. We should focus on this to brainstorm. So that's the one thing, and we implement it
exactly.
in my company. And now after this talk, I will think about how I implement it even more and copy this from the software industry. But the second thing, and I want to specifically ask you here a question, is this testing. You said, okay, there is to have some kind of accountability or stability. Internal reviewing systems are functioning, but also like testings. So I had this discussion in the last podcast with a very great coach from Copenhagen, Philip Jacobs, awesome guy. Anyway, what I want to say is, we discussed a lot the topic of testing clients in personal training settings. And we somehow were joking about how we both made the same error in the beginning of our sport journey or personal training journey. We tested each client like 2 hours, sometimes 1.5 hours. They had to do like the classical test batteries we learn in school. And now we are joking about it because it was so stupid. First of all, the results were not senseful, meaningful, because they adapt very fast.
Yeah.
Second of all, the clients didn't like it. It was 1.5 hours for them, like not nice, and they have a different modus operandi. So, can you comment on this testing, on this specific testing, or other concepts,
Yeah,
idea?
we have similar issues with in the team sport. So in the preseason, once they're coming from the vacation, we usually have this screening period for like a initial week where you test the beep test, you have test sprints, vertical jump and so forth. And it's a double-edged sword, as with everything. It's like now I'm with the Serbian national team for like last 2 years, female football. So we also have these issues with the national team because they are with us for like 10 days. We have 2 international matches and international travel. Should we test them and so forth? So it's always interesting topic. So I think the good things, I will cover the good things with that perspective, like testing first and then working out, is that you send a message, particularly for the athletes, is like you better come in some shape from a vacation because you're going to be tested. So that's the very similar to the topic that we covered previously. Like you have a test, you need to straighten up. So that's a good thing. And also maybe from a marketing perspective, is like we're gonna do everything in our ability to individualize these for you, but to do so you need to be tested. So that's a good thing. I would say it sends a message like, we do FMS, we do body composition, we jump test you, we do some type of isometric test, range of motion test, and so forth. So that's a good thing, maybe from a marketing perspective. It's like, these guys are gonna test me and fine tune the program for me. So the negative, as you mentioned, is that some athletes like it, some athletes doesn't like to be tested. I don't like being tested. It's like, and also it can be stressful, like not only psychologically, like I don't like this, but it can be also be problematic because you're coming from a vacation. Maybe some of the athletes are not prepared to be tested, and it can create problems. It's like you can maybe create load-related issues like a soreness or maybe injuring someone. Again, if you have like a 40-year-old dead bod who never lifted, and then he comes to the gym, is like, and you do a 1 repetition maximum squat and bench press. Why? The thing is like, why do you need those numbers? So I think that needs to be also answered. It's like, and I think you don't necessarily need to know the answers immediately. You can guess them. And then if you're using those to prescription, you can guess them, start with the very conservative numbers. And I think what we need to do is to hide the testing. So make it more in situ or embedded in a workout itself. So if you're doing jumps, you can do a few jumps on a jump mat. If you're doing a bench press, you have a certain progression over 2-3 weeks. Maybe on the last set in a week 3, you can say do as many reps as possible, and then cap those reps at say 10, and then you can use that number as a as a built-in test. So it's always, I think better term is like not testing, but monitoring. So like you are like continuously monitoring stuff, what's happening. I think both you need to have this continuous progress, but it also need to be formal testing day, but not like a first day. It needs to be like a formal testing day just to keep them on the toes. Like, and we say, okay, we have 1 month of a good workout. We track your body weight, morning heart rate variability, vertical jumps, and everything's going well. Your attendance is good. And now we're going to do a test because you are ready now to do a test. So I think from that perspective, it can work. So I would say we do need to have some ongoing testing or monitoring. We also need to have these iterative fixed time frame reviews and retrospectives where we actually stop and see, are these trends going well, or what we need to change, what are the results that we got, and then to figure out how we can kind of change things. So I think both needs to be involved, like ongoing monitoring and formal tests. So not sure this
No, it
answers the
makes so
question,
much
but
sense.
it's
I'm just listening and smiling because that's exactly what we're doing in the practical field. At least we really thought about this. What we do is we call it some signature exercises, which the client likes, which are like also like have some kind of reliability. We can repeat
benchmark.
them, for example, some exercises, which have to be stable, which have to be repeated. And
Yeah.
we built the workout around this a little bit. And the second thing is, like you said, these formal testings, mostly body composition. What we do, that's then my job in nutrition counseling, and just put them, okay, in 6 weeks we have a body composition measurement. And honestly, my interest is not so much the data. Of course, it's the data. It's like pushing the client a little bit to focus in the 6 week time frame to now put the things together and also see that it's working. And we don't implement this like with everybody, but just if it's like sensible. And we don't do formal testings, but monitoring, as you said.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we found out in a practical field without thinking about it like what is working. I mean, you brought it also from the practical field. And I'm just now thinking about how maybe we should implement again some formal testings also for physiological variables or performance variables with our clients, but small, easy ones. Which one would you maybe recommend for personal training? That because her heart rate variability, 1 rep max test. I mean, this should be clear. It's like 1 rep max test. The clients adapt too much in the first couple of months. It's unsafe. There's the benefit to risk ratio is not good. Yeah. So multiple repetition test, it's okay, we can do it. What other measurements would you, like easy, cheap measurements, recommend for personal training?
I think now with the technology, isometrics would be very interesting.
Exactly what I'm
Tool.
thinking about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
some type of isometric tests. And again, this is a topic that because even if you're untrained, you can do some type of a maximum isometric stuff. It's gonna be cost benefit will be very low. I mean, cost will be low, benefit will be high. So the risk of injury is very low. The risk of being sore is very low. Technical proficiency needed is also lower than controlling heavy weight. So I think some type of isometrics, or as you said, maybe having some type of benchmark exercises that you're using as a benchmark.
Mhm.
If you're changing exercise all the time, I mean, you do need to change exercise all the time because you work with the personal clients. And some people, again, it's a very complex topic and we are jumping a little bit, is that some people prefer having fixed exercises. If that makes sense. So
Mhm.
I always do these exercises and so forth. And some people are like, I want to try this exercise I saw on YouTube. I saw this other people doing this. I want to try this. And I don't see a problem with it. It's just different personalities. But as you said, I think we need to have a thread in the work in a plan of a certain exercise just to use it also as a benchmark to see, if they're getting stronger, what's happening. And with the linear positioning transducers, the ability in English, ability to measure the barbell velocity, we can also maybe use that with the clients.
Mhm.
So we can use some type of velocity. The adaptation can be maybe estimated. You can really push things maximally. So like a maximum number of reps or maximum load, which is draining. But maybe we can also have a proxy of adaptation by using sub-maximal weight and maybe judging. So if you do like 80 kilos bench press for like a 5 and your rate of exertion or reps in reserve is like 2 week 1 and maybe 4 week 6, that means there's some type of improvement. So you can use some type of a subjective metrics, put them in a mathematics, which I call the training log analysis, or maybe we can use velocity. So if you're lifting some maximum weight faster, that means there's some adaptation happening. So you can use that as a proxy. So we can hide all these kind of tests within the training program without negatively affecting a client, like creating extra load or creating soreness or creating expectations. But I need to jump to another topic, and you actually use the word pushing the athlete. And that's exactly the pushing the ceiling, rising the floor. And I'm going to use, I don't know, for some of the listeners who may be not familiar with the Dan John concept of 2 benches. So he explained very nicely these two, like a push versus pull, or push the ceiling versus rising the floor. So imagine 2 benches. So one bench is a bus bench. You're waiting for a bus, and the other bench is the same bench but in a park. It's like a national park or a park in the city. Bus bench. When you sit on a bus bench, you have expectations like, oh, the bus is coming in 3 minutes. I need to jump on a 84 bus or something like that. You're like on your toes. You're expecting stuff. Same bench. You're sitting on the same bench in a forest. It's like one day, a fox come, or maybe a pigeon or a cat, and you're enjoying, So that's a kind of a very good analogy. So with the tests, maybe you can create this push, too much of a push for a certain clients, like, oh, we need to push the results. Oh, you failed your skin folds increase for like 3%. It's creating the mental burden or pushing. So I think for certain phases, you're going to have more frequent of those tests. For park bench, you're going to have it more in the future, because some of the clients might not enjoy this pushing mentality and some will enjoy it. So depends, I would say, also on your business model. Again, I think all of this is kind of intertwined. If your business model is like, we get results, is like in 4 weeks, you need to create a push culture. But again, some of the athletes athletes or clients can actually withstand that type of a push for like 2-3 months, and they're going to burn out. So they'll say, fuck it, I cannot stand this because it's always pushing me towards the adaptation. And the other model can be, we are doing workout. My measurements can be dropping a little bit. We are enjoying the process. So again, these are these 2 extremes that we spoke about. And I think the business model needs to pick up on those threads.
Again, 100% like real life things we are living. We separate them in personal training, at least by U Sports, in workout only, having fun clients, and results clients. So there are 2 types of people.
Exactly.
And the one can become the other and vice versa. It's like, but you as a trainer have to find out in which phase the person is, and that's a quite delicate thing. Awesome. Awesome discussion about like general philosophy and some things. I would really like to, at the end of the podcast, a little bit sum it up. Of course, we now spoke about uncertainty and how to not make plans and so on, but let's try to like separate it a little bit for personal trainers. So let's say a new client comes to you, and you are constructing a workout. How do you start? You said something in the beginning like some kind of generic workouts to start off. Can you comment on this?
Good question. It's like we have this, I would say, from a marketing perspective or a business side perspective. It's like, we're gonna make an individual plan for you. It's like I see you and then I immediately create an individual plan. And I think that's bullshit.
Mhm.
In a real life, that's bullshit. But marketing wise, it's a good thing. I mean,
Mhm.
it attracts people because I'm gonna have a special workout for me, for my genotype or what have you. But it doesn't happen that easy. You always need to balance these two concepts. I think also quite important. Phenomenologically in training is explore versus exploit. So explore phase is like you are trying to figure out things. And exploit is once you figure out the thread that you need to exploit, you are exploiting it. So these are always involved in training. Explore, exploit. And maybe in some certain phases, you're more exploiting, similar to that pushing type of planning or push workouts. You're actually really, really squeezing the lemon juice, You're exploiting what you figure out needs to be exploited. And explore is a little bit more trying to figure out, how things move, where they fit together. So when you get a new client, you always have this explore phase. You don't know who you're dealing with. Again, we are trying to speed this up with the tests that we mentioned. Like we're gonna put the client on a bunch of tests, but we don't necessarily need to. We can start with we call it generic program, and then everybody needs to do similar stuff. It's like no one is a special flower. Like we have 2 arms, 2 legs, a neck. We need to do squats, bench, pull-ups, rows, lunges, core, stuff like that. So you put that client on a generic program, and then you see, how things happen. Maybe this individual client have an issue with the shoulder. He doesn't like bench press. Maybe he likes incline press, or working with certain type of barbells, or maybe this client doesn't like to do certain type of workouts. Maybe the client prefer doing a push pull or upper body lower body versus a body split or full body sessions and so forth. You also figure out if this client is more like a result dominated or likes to work out, mingle with people, and then you kind of, from your business perspective, you move him to or her to a workout or results, kind of a branch of your
And
business
just to
or
interrupt
workout.
you here. So we start off with a more generic program to be explore, you call it, and then we
Yes.
exploit as we find out. And again, like so you give words to the things we are doing or we are feeling. What we have is some kind of signature training program. We have like 3 different, depending on the fitness level, like really generic, And actually in the
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
first training session, each of our trainers apply this. But of course, because of the discussion they had with him when they said they want to focus really on the triceps or they have a shoulders issues, they
Yes.
tweak a little bit of this generic program and exploit this topic. If they say they want like more muscular arms, we try to focus this and maybe even give them a little bit of muscles on it with stretch focus movements that they also feel like, wow, that was some kind of a marketing effect. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
nice. They listened to me. And then we build on this program step by step. Of course, the next training session will be this program plus the shoulder exercises or a comment of the client,
Yeah.
plus the other thing in minus a thing we don't need to, but we have certain exercise there.
Yeah.
And then we form the training program in the first, like we say all the time, 4 training sessions. We need at least 4 training sessions that okay, this is the baseline with a personal training client. And I cannot imagine in team sports how difficult this is or even impossible. And then from this on, we can really construct this agile idea. Would it be in the idea or in your philosophy of training planning? Because I feel a lot of
Definitely.
similarities.
You're not going to jump to first signal, maybe it's a noise. So you need to have, I would say, a fixed time frame. As you mentioned, it's a 4 workouts. and then you do a review. So if you do review every workout, you're gonna be jumping to a lot of stuff. So it's like, we're gonna stick to this for like a certain time frame, a week or 2 weeks, and then we're gonna review and then figure out, okay, how should I modify the workout? Again, things will pop up while you do, while you actually plan as you go and figure out as you go.
Mm-hmm.
And also having a generic program, you probably know, is like everybody asks you, can you write me a program? All your friends, family members, can you write me a program? And you're like, just, it's like, it's draining your energy to write a program for like your uncle or your niece.
You know what I did? Maybe you come to this point.
Program.
I give them a generic program and told them, okay, if you do it like 6 times and you report on this, you come back.
You need to deserve being
exactly.
Yes,
come back. I write your perfect training program. 90% never come back.
Exactly. So I'm wasting my time. It's like at the end of the day, you need to figure out priorities. So if I have a bunch of athletes, it's a pipe dream. I cannot give everyone the same amount of attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I need to figure out, even in a workout, you cannot give every exercise same amount of attention. You at the end of the day, you need to do one exercise first and one second. So the first exercise will get more attention. It's like because you are fresh and so forth. So same with this. Like I cannot approach and be very specific with planning for someone who's just coming or maybe trying out our facility. So some of the, maybe from a business perspective, business model is like, first month is free, or first 2 workouts or 3 workouts are free. So I'm not gonna, spend 3 hours writing a perfect program for someone who's very uncertain, like not as a client. Again, at the end of the day, we need to make money, right? You need to make some type of a profit. So, if I spend a lot of time and energy on someone who's not bringing any money, and I don't think that's a good business model.
Of course.
I mean, if you know what I mean, it's not like...
Yeah, and of course we work not only with a social, we work with like a human being, in a social environment, in an organic system, or in a biological system, but also like in a business context. So we have to somehow combine this. But what you're saying, okay, is this minimal viable product, I think they call it in the software industry, where you just push out something which somehow functions and then look, and they do this in software development, no? Like they're very intelligent, or they're lazy, or both, and it's okay. They just push out a simple product and then let try the users and find out, okay, the login button is not functional or is too small. They all the time miss it. Okay, let's work on this, and then develop the overall project or idea. And I all the time use this example in training planning. So we have this Lego pieces and we are creative, and we can figure it out on the way. And I'm totally agree. How do we continue? So we have a minimal viable product. We have like some kind of rolling process, we form the training plan for our personal training client. We somehow take another route, come back, and alone this idea said by us in this podcast is very important for a lot of personal trainers who are totally lost in one of the 2 extremes. Then we said we have some monitoring exercises that would be awesome, to have them. And maybe with some clients, some kind of fixed deals. And then we use specific times you sprints, formal testing. And then we use the sprints to like push some, okay, I have a wedding, I have a beach body, or I want to have a 6-pack maybe, or I want to feel stronger in my legs for a hiking tour and so on, to push this without losing the general concept. You called it the lines, we keep the lines. It's not like a auto road with six lines, but it's also not like a small one where you can just go. You put this. Would this explain a little bit your approach to planning the training?
I would say yes, and one additional concept that we didn't capture, and I think you mentioned it in the last sentence, is like robust versus optimal planning. So I think it's also not mentioned in the book. So robust versus optimal planning. So optimal is like figuring out under certain conditions or stable and predictable conditions what will be the optimal training program. And the problem with that is that, for example, in team sports, so speed work and when you do some type of explosive stuff can happen on a specific day, usually match day -3, -4, or match day +3 or +4. So you need to be recovered from a previous match, but far away from a next match. So that's like an ideal day to load the athletes and do some type of explosive work or what have you. So this works when the conditions are predictable and unchangeable. So in the things change, that can actually be very problematic, can be opposite of optimal, can cause problems. And robust planning is more, it's not ideal, but it actually works under changing circumstances. It's going to give you results. It's not going to give you great results, but it's not going to make you, it's not going to create negative problems. And I think from that perspective, making sure that we always hit certain stuff. So in a team workouts, we always do some type of a sprint, some type of a break, some type of nowadays there's idea of microdosing, like doing, or distributed training is like doing everything a little bit every day. So in a team perspective, in a personal training perspective, that can mean that we always need to hit the important things. Like you need to hit the movement patterns all the time. You do need to have some type of a baseline cardio or aerobic training, maybe some type of a mobility work. You always need to have the threads of that. And then if you want to do like someone wants to have a bigger upper body, you can kind of emphasize that a little bit. It's not, you're not going to put all the eggs into only doing upper body exercises. And that also brings me to this idea of when you're training yourself or training clients, is like, if you're not going to the gym, you don't feel like going to the gym. It's like, if you're not ready for a heavy squats, I'm not going to do anything. But you'll be better off like saying, okay, let's, I'm sitting all day in the office. I'm unable to go to the gym. Option A is like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to wait for the next hard gym session, for which I'm probably not going to be able to accept it or like adapt to it or actually perform it. So that's option A, which is bad. And option B will be like, okay, I'm unable to do a full workout today, like lift heavy weights, but I can do like 3 sets of push-ups, body weight squats. It's not perfect, but I still do something, and I'm going to be more receptive for the next harder workout that's going to come down the road. So from that perspective, we do need to have, from a planning perspective, this is something that we spoke a few days ago, is that maybe we should plan having all these filler workouts. Is like, you missed 2 sessions, you cannot jump immediately to the hard session, if that makes sense. You need to have this filler or transition workouts. So it's like, you need to do some type, maybe just go inside, warm up, do some type of isometrics, iso holds, very light squats, and that's it. And then the next workout, you'll be eager and more receptive to actually perform it as it should be. Same thing if the client is like on a vacation or something like that. It's like, option A is like doing nothing. Option B is like, okay, you are sitting all day on a beach resort. You do set of lunges, set of push-ups, do something a little bit.
Activate, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think our planning is more like can be very strict, and for that it can demand a lot of either or thinking, like either you're gonna do a workout as prescribed or you're not gonna do anything. It's like, maybe we should kind of have these modular things, like let's say you have a hard workout planned, like a set of squats, like 3 sets of 5 at say 80% or something like that, and the client comes in and say, look, my kid was sick last night, I didn't have a good night's sleep, and I know we have a hard session, I have a hard time coming to this workout because I could easily say, I'm going to miss this workout because I didn't sleep well, but I decide to come, or can you modify it? And then you can say, okay, we're still going to do squats, but we might do it modular. So first section will be mandatory warm up, just like 5 at 50, 5 at 60, 5 at 70, and done. If you're able to continue, you're going to continue. So that's going to also give ability to the clients to decide themselves.
Exactly.
And it's like, if I go to the workout, I'm going to do a hard workout, I'm going to suffer, I'm not going to go. So I'm going to cancel it. And so that's the option A. And option B is like, I'm going to go there, we're still going to do squats, but I'm going to be able to adjust my load. And
that's how you and me are training as well, and everybody who does training. And second of all, the most important thing is option A could also mean that you force the way out of the fitness topic for the client, because you make him feel like fitness is like just like this drill instructor mode or training, and yeah, you maybe do something also ethically very wrong, because you don't give them, they come to you for help, and obviously are not in the field, not the chance to get into the field with these stupid ideas, exactly, just to follow like a classical training system. Mm-hmm.
And some clients, also athletes, they don't like to think. It's like, just give me what to do and I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And some prefer to actually be involved. They're interested in the process. So, and again, you figure that out on that generic program. If that makes sense. You don't know, you cannot pick that up from a FMS or counter movement jump or range of motion testing. You need to interact with that person, and then you figure out maybe the best prescription for that type of person. So some person will be more engaged, will be more involved in the program. Mm-hmm. So the program and prescription, that program needs to adapt to that type of personality, if that makes sense. And some athletes or clients will be like, I don't want to think, I'm here just to work out, you give me what to do, I do it, I go home. So again,
yeah, and that was my goal. We have to round it up, the podcast, a little bit. We're already over an hour in, but awesome. That was my idea with you, and I'm so happy that we got to this point, that we juggle a lot of balls, a lot of situations, and we have to somehow combine them together in this training program. I all the time say to my trainers, it's like cooking. You have a lot of ingredients. Some are like obligatory, because pasta is not a pasta without pasta, but you can somehow play with it. And a good trainer and coach understands this. They know the basic concepts, but at the same time, they are creative and can somehow combine it to something which is good for the client at the end, who's paying you and to whom you're providing service. And I just invite everybody listening here to check out Mladen's website. Complimentary training is a subscription-based service with like over 3,500 members. Mladen has also a lot of like products there which you can buy and get a little bit more a clue what he's working on. Really interesting stuff. And yeah, I really hope that we helped some of the trainers out of this like gray zone, out of this like confusion, showed them that it's okay to be a little bit confused, to also follow your own ideas, but also to push some trainers to go more back to structured approaches with maybe measurements or monitoring of exercises and how to use them intelligently. Agreed?
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mladen, for your time.
Thank you, Pascal.